The night the teenage girl walked into the Hells Angels clubhouse, the town's heartbeat seemed to pause. Rain slicked the cracked asphalt outside, neon from a flickering sign bleeding into puddles like spilled paint. She was soaked, shaking, mascara streaked down her cheeks, backpack clutched to her chest as if it were the last thing anchoring her to the world. Everyone in town knew that building, knew the low thunder of engines and the rumors that clung to it like smoke. No one expected a child to cross that threshold alone, sobbing so hard her breath stuttered. What happened next would ripple through the town for years, challenging fear with humanity in a way no one saw coming. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that compassion can show up in the most unexpected places, take a moment right now to like this video. Share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach the world. The girl's name was Lena, and the weight on her shoulders had been building for months before that night. Her mother's illness had swallowed the little stability they had, medical bills piling up like snowdrifts until the heat was cut off, and eviction notices arrived in cruel, official envelopes. School had become a blur of whispers and sideways looks, teachers trying to help, but never quite understanding the urgency behind her quiet panic. Lena had tried shelters, relatives, church basements, anywhere with a light on, but doors kept closing. By the time the rain began to fall, she had nowhere left to go. The clubhouse was not a choice born of bravery. It was the last light she saw. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of oil and leather, the walls lined with history that made outsiders nervous. The men inside noticed her immediately, not as a threat, but as a disruption to a world that rarely intersected with tears like hers. Lena stood frozen, humiliation burning hotter than fear, her mind racing through every warning she had ever heard. She could feel the tremor in her hands, the ache in her chest that came from holding too much grief for too long. She expected to be turned away, maybe worse. What she did not expect was stillness, the kind that comes before something important happens. The challenges Lena faced were not simple or cinematic in the way movies like to pretend. They were small and relentless, the kind that grind people down quietly, hunger that made her dizzy in class, shame that kept her from asking for help again, responsibility far too heavy for someone her age, as she tried to protect her younger brother while pretending everything was fine. That night, soaked and exhausted, she finally cracked. The sobbing that escaped her was not loud. It was raw, the sound of a child who had run out of options. Something shifted in that room, something the town would later struggle to put into words. The men moved with an unexpected care, not crowding her, not interrogating her pain. Someone draped a dry jacket around her shoulders. Someone else found a chair, a towel, a warm drink. There were no grand speeches, no dramatic gestures, just a quiet recognition that a line had been crossed, and it could not be uncrossed. Lena's breathing slowed. The rain outside kept falling, but for the first time in weeks, she felt a fragile sense of safety settle in her chest. What happened over the next hours was a chain of decisions that grew into something larger than any one person. Calls were made, not to authorities looking for trouble, but to people who could help. A doctor who owed a favor checked on her mother. A local mechanic offered temporary work to keep the lights on. A spare room was cleared, not as charity but as shelter, with rules and respect. The clubhouse, long whispered about, became a bridge rather than a wall. By morning, Lena's world had not magically fixed itself, but it had changed direction. The town noticed. Word spread the way it always does, through gas stations and grocery aisles, through cautious conversations that started with disbelief. People drove by the clubhouse a little slower, curiosity tugging at their fear. When Lena returned to school, she walked straighter. Her eyes still carried sadness, but there was a new steadiness there, a sense that she was not invisible anymore. Her mother's treatment began, slow and uncertain but hopeful. Bills were managed. Her brother laughed again. None of it erased the hardship, but it proved something vital. Help can come from places we are taught to fear. As weeks turned into months, the shock settled into reflection. The town had to confront its assumptions, to reckon with the fact that humanity does not belong to one group or one image. Lena volunteered at a community kitchen, determined to be the person she had needed on that rainy night. She did not romanticize what happened or pretend it fixed everything. She simply carried the lesson forward, understanding that survival sometimes depends on the courage to ask and the humility to answer. If this story has reached into your heart, if it has reminded you that compassion can change the course of a life, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe so these stories continue to be told. Before the ending, we have one special request for you. Please comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel, because your words matter more than you know. Years later, when people asked what shocked the town the most, it was not the rain-soaked entrance or the unlikely setting. It was the realization that kindness is not owned by the respectable or the powerful, but practiced by those willing to see a crying child and choose to help. Lena would grow up carrying that night with her, not as a scar but as a compass, pointing her toward empathy when the world felt cold. And the town, forever changed, learned that sometimes the bravest thing a community can do is let its heart be surprised.